I'm having a hard morning. Bible's upside down, notes are upside down, grabbing the wrong podium. So my sister fairly regularly listens to the sermons that get posted online, and then she'll make a comment every once in a while. But she's for practical reasons at least a week behind, and I can't remember what I've said last week. And so sometimes she'll make a comment like this morning. I got a text message commenting on last week's sermon, and I'm going to have to look at it when I get back into the office because I can't remember what was going on.
You're too young.
And see, that was a good week. I need to record this one just to make sure I didn't say something totally outrageous. One other tangent. So I got accepted to a Doctor of Ministry program out at Phillips Theological Seminary, Tulsa, Oklahoma. So I'm going out twice a year to Oklahoma. And I gave a friend of mine who lives out there a heads up. And his response was, well, we have 3 worship services on Sundays. Which ones are you going to preach? And I said, well, actually, I'd be game. And Andy wrote back, he said, I know how hard it is to just be able to go and worship somewhere. And so I said, well, yeah, it'll be nice just to sort of sit in the front row and raise a questioning theological eyebrow every once in a while when something is said. We continue our journey here in the 10th chapter of the Gospel according to Mark. It is on page 818 in the Pew Bibles, if you are interested in using those to read along. We're going to pick up with the 35th verse and finish out the chapter. James and John, the sons of Zebedee, came forward to him, Jesus, and said to him, Teacher, we want you to do for us whatever we ask of you. And Jesus said to them, What is it you want me to do for you? And they said to him, Grant us to sit, one at your right hand and one at your left in your glory. But Jesus said to them, You do not know what you are asking. Are you able to drink the cup that I drink, or be baptized with the baptism I am baptized with? They replied, We are able. Then Jesus said to them, The cup that I drink you will drink, and with the baptism with which I am baptized you will be baptized. But to sit at my right hand or at my left is not mine to grant, but it is for those whom it has been prepared. When the 10 heard this, they began to be angry with James and John. So Jesus called them and said to them, You know that among the Gentiles, those whom they recognize as their rulers lord it over them, and their great ones are tyrants over them. But it is not so among you. But whoever wishes to become great among you must be your servant, and whomever wishes to be first among you must be slave of all. For the Son of Man came not to be served, but to serve, and to give his life as ransom for many. They came to Jericho. As Jesus and his disciples and a large crowd were leaving Jericho, Bartimaeus, son of Timaeus, a blind beggar, was sitting by the roadside. When he heard that it was Jesus of Nazareth, he began to shout out and say, Jesus, Son of David, have mercy on me. Many sternly ordered him to be quiet, but he cried out even more loudly, Son of David, have mercy on me. Jesus stood still and said, Call him here. And they called the blind man, saying to him, Take heart, get up, he is calling you. So throwing off his cloak, he sprang up and came to Jesus. Then Jesus said to him, What do you want me to do for you? The blind man said to him, My teacher, let me see again. Jesus said to him, Go, your faith has made you well. Immediately he regained his sight and followed him on the way. May God's blessing reside in the experiences of Scripture on this day. May they guide the meditations of our hearts and the words of my lips. So I got to teach, for a handful of semesters, I got to teach human civilization. All of human history in 2 classes. Yeah. 2 classes. 2 semesters is what, but two courses. So when I taught Rome, I had 2 lectures, 2 45-minute lectures to cover all of Roman history. And when you're trying to talk about Rome and Roman history, 2 lectures just isn't enough. But one of the things that was honed in on, one of the things that I talked about quite a bit, and it comes up in Bible study because it's central to understanding how the disciples and Jesus were functioning, was this idea of a patron-client relationship. Right? So you had someone who had power, prestige, wealth, and someone who didn't have the same power, prestige, wealth. And the person in the hierarchy, upper position, would offer to do something as a patron, as long as the person lower on the ladder agreed to be a client to do something in return, to pledge loyalty. This is sort of important. The patron gives you something, and in return you pledge your loyalty. You want to hitch your wagon to the right kind of person, especially if you're getting further and further up the ladder, because if you back the wrong horse, I'm going to use all kinds of cliches. If you back the wrong horse, it could be problematic. Now, I would talk about this with the students in Roman history because it is a way of understanding all of human behavior. I think since the moment humans have walked this earth, we have engaged in this behavior. Someone has access that we don't have. We want it. We approach them and we engage in, more often than not, one of 2 behaviors. We either attack them to take what it is that they have, or we seek to be a client, to receive their patronage in some way. And this is where the disciples are at. It's not just a Roman thing, but it was real big in Roman society. It's really how the Roman hierarchy worked. Mutual back-scratching. I am a person in position and power, or I am on the ascendancy. I'm heading toward position and power, and I can do things for you as long as you pledge your loyalty to me. Now, Jesus has offered three cycles of predicting his death. And this is the 3rd one, as was mentioned. In all 3 of them, the reaction of the disciples is to misunderstand what's going on. And here we see it with James and John. Jesus gives the most detailed response, the most detailed description of what is going to happen, this foreshadowing of the passion. And James and John go, can we be number 2 and number 3 in the kingdom? Jesus says, I'm going to the cross and I'm going to suffer. And they jump up and down and saying, we want to be the top clients for you. We pledge ultimate loyalty so that we can have the 2 most important positions in the realm outside of actually being the one on the throne. I don't know what to call it, vice president and treasurer. I don't know what we would call those positions nowadays. But the 2 most important positions, that's what they're asking for. Now, Mark tells us, he's got these little hints, which is why we had this bigger section read. He's got these hints of what's going on, because in these 3 predictions, when Jesus says, I'm going to the cross, and the disciples misinterpret it, Jesus gives a teaching of discipleship. Mark tells us that this is happening as they are on the road, right? We're going to Jerusalem, but the Greek translation is the way. They're on the way. Interestingly, that's going to be a description that sticks to Christians, early followers of Christ, before they are called Christians, and even after we earn that moniker, we are called the way. we are journeying the path. Mark says, this tragic gospel, they are on the way when Jesus gives this prediction. They are on the way, the path of God that has been laid out when John and James, the sons of Zebedee, jump up and down and say, ooh, we want to be the most important, as they reflect human culture and empire thought. They want to ride Jesus' coattails. They're not listening to where the coattails are going. Otherwise, they might have asked for something a little bit different. But they want to ride the coattails. What they hear is Jesus taking the world as it is and doing this. And for once in their lives, they could be on top. Because there was no other way in the hierarchy that James and John, fishermen, the son of a fisherman, would ever find themselves near the top of the heap. Now, the other disciples hear what's going on. They're humans, just like James and John. These guys are trying to angle their way in. They're trying to cut us off. They want to be the most important. They want to be the biggest. These other disciples, these other humans, these folks who are church today, they rise up and protest. We want to be big and important. And they're kicking themselves for not thinking to ask Jesus the question first. I should have gone up before. John, who in the Gospel of John is the beloved disciple, he's going, oh man, had only I just gone up and asked first, I could have been the one who's most important. Matthew or Judas or any of the others. We want to be big and important. We want to ride the coattails. We want to have an impact on the world as we are experiencing the world. But not necessarily the kind of impact that God envisions. We are drawn to this because Jesus asked James and John, what is it you want me to do for you? And then they make their request. And Jesus asks, can you handle it? That's always a red flag, by the way. If you make a request and someone says, can you handle it? You need to seriously rethink the request. Can you handle it? Can you handle what's about to happen? You want to ride my coattails to power and glory and authority, but can you handle what it is that I am talking about, what it is I'm leading you to, what it is we are called to do and be? And just in case we didn't understand, just in case Mark's community didn't understand, this story is butted right up against Bartimaeus. Bartimaeus, son of Timaeus. It's a repetitive kind of thing. It's redundancy. Bartimaeus is seeking. The disciples, we think, have already found. They are seeking power and prestige. They're already with Jesus, and so they're looking to move up the social landscape within this empire thought and frame of mind. Bartimaeus is just seeking Jesus. He just wants to be well. And Jesus asks the same question that was asked to James and John. What is it you want me to do for you? What do you want? James and John wanted to ride the coattails. They wanted power. They wanted authority. They wanted to be important. Things that we as humans can understand. We want to be these sorts of things. We want to be remembered. That's why we build monuments and put our names on things. We want to know that we've had an impact in this world. A legacy. Because by golly, if they put me in charge, I'm going to do it right. Don't put me in charge. I'm not going to do it right. But there's part of me that believes that. There's part of me that said, just give me the ball and let me go. Bartimaeus is seeking Christ so that he can be whole. The disciples, which are the reflection of us as church, are seeking importance in the world. Bartimaeus says, I just want to be made well. Mark has put these two stories back to back so that the church might learn. What is it that you want me to do for you? The question is asked. And Bartimaeus says, let me see, to perceive, to fully know and be known by God. The same question asked to the disciples does not get such a profound response. The ones who have been walking with Jesus and working with Jesus and learning from Jesus and living with Jesus and performing miracles and signs and wonders did not come up with this profound desire for God when the question is asked. Now, Bartimaeus is not asked if he could handle it. Can you handle being made well? There's lots of expectations, actually, that come with being made well. There's lots of weight. But he does respond. He gets up and he follows on the way. Now, literally, he's going to Jerusalem with Jesus and the crowd. But Mark's choice of language indicates that Bartimaeus has become like a disciple, a follower of Christ, one who is finding that fuller relationship. He's not seeking to ride coattails into power. He's not seeking to be important or to have places of prestige, his name on stadiums or things along those lines. He's seeking Christ. And Mark holds that act of faith, that response, up against the disciples' misunderstanding to this third crucifixion pronouncement. Jesus says, I am going to die. The disciples misunderstand, and Jesus teaches about discipleship. The lesson is driven home by one who says, I want to be made well, and then chooses to follow. Not to ride coattails, not to move up in the world, not to achieve some position of power and authority in what is understood as God's realm, which looks a lot like the empire, but one who seeks Christ. And in that, seeks service, seeks to be church today. Thanks be to God, and amen.